legislature legalized unverifiable voting in 2000.
Like you said, to Trump, but they're getting greedy.
They said, go out there and rob these houses and bring back the bounty, and then that'll pay your way.
Because Republicans who get endorsement from Georgia carry that they mean anything.
You can't sit on the sidelines any longer. You must get involved in the game. This is your sign. Hey everybody, welcome to Small Town Underground. This is a candidate feature that we're doing today, pre-recorded. So welcome to the show, Small Town Underground. You can always go to givesendgo.com/Small Underground to donate. That's the only donation link that we have, and every penny helps the show move forward. So welcome today. We will be having a conversation with Brad Barnes, who is running for second vice chair of the Georgia GOP. So we're going to hear from Brad today and get to know him a little bit. So welcome to the show, Brad.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Roy.
Yes, sir. I'd like you to start out just by telling the audience who you are and what you're running for, and give us a little bit of your background.
Sure. My name is Brad Barnes, and I'm from Rome, Georgia. So a lot of you may know me from a lot of different grassroots things. I also ran for state house before, against someone that I think we would all consider a more establishment candidate here in Rome, Katie Dempsey, and have been involved in a lot of grassroots activities, the election integrity movement, working on free speech down at the Capitol, like the campus free speech bill, and a whole lot of stuff. So.
All right. Yeah, I know. I think I first met you. You had gotten arrested working on protesting a pride parade that actually you guys weren't anywhere near, and went through quite a debacle with the Floyd County Police Department and the court system, right?
Yes. So that was about a year-long process. So we were protesting the second annual Trans Queer Pride for Kids event in Rome, Georgia. And for folks that don't know, Rome, Georgia is a fairly small southern town. It's also the home base of Marjorie Taylor Greene. So it's not really the place you would normally expect to see that kind of stuff. But unfortunately, with the way that this idea virus is kind of spreading through social media, it is popping up in small towns across Georgia, including Rome. And so, the first event happened the year before, a lot of nasty stuff going on. A lot of nasty stuff happened the year we were protesting, not just drag queen shows for kids, but also adult men with Daisy Dukes cut off so low that their genitalia were exposed to children. You had the local library system, showing off their transgender books for kids collection. You had DFACS, which is part of the state government, there as a presence, as a table offering these people kids to adopt. So it was a kind of a crazy event. And so as Christians, as Republicans, we thought, being silent was not the right move, and we had to do something. And so a group of us got together and protested outside the event, across the street from the event. As you were saying, we weren't anywhere inside the event at all.
Right.
And so we ended up getting illegally arrested. We fought those charges for over a year. We won that. We forced the city of Rome to change their ordinance so that it would be compliant with the First Amendment, and then also to crack down on the event. And they did do that this year, which would have been the third event.
Okay. And
they actually moved it a little further from downtown as well.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I know. And Rome's sort of becoming a hotbed now, if you will. I hear there's a lot of protesters that are protesting sort of daily. People are getting a lot more active in that scene. You have anything to say about that? I know that a lot of times Marjorie, her headquartered office is getting protested daily from what I hear. So,
yeah, I mean, there's definitely a tug of war between the leftists and the sort of small town conservative types. I mean, Rome is home to 4 colleges. And so I think that's probably why we get a little bit more of this stuff than you would expect in a town of our size.
Right. It's almost kind of like a very northern metro county as well. I mean, a lot of people retire there from Atlanta, from the metros. So
And we are getting a lot of folks starting to move in, kind of refugees from Cobb and Bartow and Cherokee. And so that is definitely changing the dynamics for us in Rome.
Right. And one more thing about Rome, I don't know how, before we start into your campaign, I know that there's a lot of talk about data centers that are being built, and the research that I've done, it all points to the fact that our legislators in the state are really going to be pushing data centers. What is your take on these data centers that are coming into Floyd County, Bartow, the different counties in the area? Are you pro data centers, or are you anti?
Right. So I have a background in software and data engineering, so this is a bit in my wheelhouse as well. And I think in general these data centers are a bad move for economic development because they tend to use an inordinate amount of the electrical infrastructure and other infrastructure,
and the water,
compared to the amount of jobs they bring.
Right.
And so you might have the equivalent of electricity usage of a factory that can employ 3,000 people, but this data center uses that same amount of power for maybe 40, 50 employees. And most of them are going to be H-1B visa holders from India or China. So they're not going to be
a good point.
Local jobs for local people.
Yeah, I know there's a movement growing in some of these counties, Whitfield, Floyd, and other counties, and we're monitoring it in our county because I personally don't want to see these data centers take over our agriculture. So,
Right.
I kind of agree. We need to all get educated on these data centers, and I know Floyd County is becoming like a kind of a hotbed for this subject. So,
Right.
okay,
And I think that these companies kind of prey on these sort of small towns with cheap infrastructure that are looking for jobs that maybe don't have the sophistication in their economic development staff to know, hey, these are not actually a great thing. Not all growth is really growth in a way.
very
Right.
much agreed. Okay.
Right. And it's also going to drive up electricity costs for
Oh yeah.
other businesses, small businesses, big industry, as well as homeowners.
Yeah, we plan to do a lot of research into that in the future. We really need to get educated, right? So
Right,
let's
sure.
talk. You're running for second vice chair, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. What was your intention on making that decision, and how do you envision the second vice chair position?
Sure. So, I mean, for me, I see our country being in a pretty bad situation. We've got a little bit of breathing room because we now have Donald Trump in there again. But it could have very well have gone the other way had we not had a good team in place in 2026. And I see that to me, the Republican Party is sort of the thin wall holding back a tremendous amount of tyranny in our country. And so that's why I want to offer my skill set and why I want a grassroots person like myself in there, so that we can get the tools and the training to our people. We have a lot of people that are really energetic, really want to save our country. And, at the state party level, we can provide a ton of acceleration to them in terms of what they're able to accomplish so that they're not having to figure everything out in 159 counties. So things like text messaging tools, email blast tools. One thing I've talked about on the campaign trail is a postcard program. So the state party through Congress has an exemption from the normal postage rates. They can mail at the nonprofit rate, which is not something a normal political campaign or a county party can do.
Right.
So the state party could actually put together a postcard program where, based on population, they could send postcards on behalf of each county party every month, inviting people in the voter file that are Republican voters to get involved.
Right.
And I think, over a 2-year period, if we stuck with that, we would probably double the size or triple the size of a lot of our county parties.
I agree. Communication, I think, is the key, right? And we'll touch on some grassroots in a minute, but I think we all obviously have to have communication from all levels, both reciprocal, correct? So that sounds like a good plan. What are some of the key things that you're looking at in your position? I know that's probably one of them that you might aim to change, but what other things are you interested in as the executive body?
Right. So one thing that I would like to see more of is the state officers getting out more across the state. And so I'm hoping that we can maybe put together some type of a travel budget so that I mean, because all these positions are volunteer positions. So every time you're seeing us out there, it's us providing all of the money out of our own pockets to do that. And so I'm hoping that, you know, we'll see a lot more of the officers out there getting engaged if we have something like that,
Right.
as well. And I think that that's very important because there's all the corners of the state, all the small towns, there's hundreds of thousands of unengaged people that we need to activate. And not just as voters, but also as activists.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I want to go here, just because normally, I guess a month ago, we would just be doing standard questions, but, so obviously this is a contentious convention we're facing, where anybody who's paying attention, we understand this, and there seems to be a divide. So a lot of grassroots, and we're not here to debate things that are out post. I'm just talking about it in generality. So there is a obvious divide between what people are calling establishment and grassroots. You know, pick your side, whatever. But how do you see, or based on what you are seeing out here in the social media sphere, what kind of ways can we bring people together and listen to the concerns of the grassroots versus the establishment, however you want to call it?
Sure. I mean, there's definitely a lot of contention. I think, you know, a lot of times the divide between what is being called establishment, a lot of the people being called establishment are people that are MAGA people. Like, you know, you would say like Sally Grubbs, for instance, has been in the trenches on election integrity for years, has been gung-ho for Donald Trump for years, and got a lot of attacks against her for, you know, from the establishment people for those things over the years. So it's been interesting in this race to see some of the people that you would have, you know, before this race started, think, oh yeah, they're grassroots all the way, get attacked as some kind of a new establishment.
Right.
You know, in terms of bringing everyone together, I think that's just a matter of having a plan in place, getting people bought into the plan, and working toward the plan.
Right.
I think as grassroots people, we have to be smart.
Right.
The odds stacked against us are incredible, right? And we don't have the luxury of getting 100% pure people, you know, pure and perfect people in every role. We have to work with the people that have offered themselves up as volunteers to get the job done. I mean, the most correct people in the world, most of them are sitting at home on the couch, right?
Right.
You know, you can have someone like Paul Ryan or whatever. You know, you can have these people in office that they're so pure that they don't get anything done. And, you know, like Marjorie, I would say she's gung-ho and grassroots all the way. She gets a lot of flack for working with the establishment to get stuff done, but at certain points you've got to plug yourself in and get stuff done. You know, because politics is unfortunately not like a Facebook comment section. You've got to unfortunately engage with what you have
different
available.
in real life.
Exactly. You know, I mean, otherwise what you're talking about is a revolution, because if you're not able to get anything done in the system, then the only option you have left is a revolution.
Right.
So these folks that want 100% purity, want someone that they agree with on every single issue, every single action, those people ultimately, maybe they don't realize, but the only alternative they're leaving themselves is to have a revolution, to throw the whole system out and start over. And that's a tall order, you know. If we can work in the system, I think we should.
Well, yeah, and I don't disagree with you. So let's just election integrity, for example. There's a big push. Sure. I feel like personally, there's been breadcrumbs, right? Would you be, or I guess what most people would ask is how you feel about election integrity, Dominion voting systems. Do we need the change in Georgia to fix the election system. What's your take on that?
I don't think that we should have ever gone with the Dominion machines.
Mm-hmm.
I think the cloud of stuff around them, the Kemp staffers involved in lobbying for them. I think from the get-go, it was probably, there were enough red flags from the get-go to not go into those.
Right.
I obviously support hand-counted paper ballots, getting rid of election season and having only election day.
Man, I would like that.
And it's been very frustrating. Yeah, it's been very frustrating to see the General Assembly drag their feet for like 5 years. And it's interesting that finally in this session, a lot of those folks that have dragged their feet the longest are like, let's just get this done. It's not going away. Let's do this. And then, folks in the governor's office, and you kind of saw this the way that the Senate kind of adjourned and left town
Right.
On sign died. A part of that was the contention around election integrity of folks in the governor's office not really wanting to go through with it,
Right.
and folks in the General Assembly deciding that they're ready for that. So it'll be interesting going into the next General Assembly session to see what we can get done. And one thing that I've proposed, and I'm thinking hopefully we'll get it in there next year, is a requirement that when apartment complexes turn over units, that they have to notify either the Secretary of State's office or the County Board of Elections and Registrations, so that all the registrations at that address can be blanked out. Because I've
That's a good
done
idea.
door knocking all over the state. And I'll tell you, in places like Atlanta, you'll go door knocking and there'll be like 15 or 20 people listed in an apartment because they turn it over every year. People register, people stay registered.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just a huge avenue for potential fraud, especially when you still have the existence of widespread mail voting.
Right. No, that's a
And
good
so
point. Yeah.
I was going to say, if you get rid of that, you're then also forcing the Democrats to have to chase their voters around. Potentially hundreds of thousands of their voters are going to fall off that way. And so instead of them out there spending their time registering new voters, they've then got to chase their old voters. So it's a huge strategic win for us as well.
Sure. It's very comical to me that the Democrats spent years hollering election fraud, and then when we actually find the election
Right.
fraud and find the systems and find all the manipulative ways, they're completely silent. So
Yeah.
it's never.
Because I was down
ceases to
at the
amaze me.
Fulton County Commission trying to get Jason Frazier in there on their Board of Elections and Registrations this past week. And you would be surprised to hear what the Democrats were saying about them, about how upset they were that they were cleaning up the voter rolls and all these other things.
Yeah, that was a
So it is
huge
interesting
upset.
that they scream, voter integrity when it wasn't working in their favor.
Right.
And now, yeah.
Yeah, that was a huge upset. Was it Jason Frazier and Julie Allen, correct?
Yes.
I think so. Yeah, I hope we'll do a show with them. I'd like to lay that all out, but yeah, absolutely. I can't imagine why you wouldn't want to have a national day of voting where it would be like a mini 4th of July, man. Everybody'd be out like having cookouts, and that's all you had to do that day was to go vote and just socialize and have a good time. I mean, that's a no-brainer to me. So
Some countries do that. I believe Australia does that,
Mm-hmm.
and they actually do have cookouts at the local precincts and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
yeah, I mean, so yeah, absolutely. So good. What else? What other things would you like to cover about, any concerns that you have or anything that you're looking at or highlighting in particular?
Yeah, I mean, the role of the second vice chair ultimately is to back up whoever is chair and what they would like to do. And so I will work with either of the folks that are running for chair, if they get in there. But in terms of what I like to do, I spoke a little bit about some of the infrastructure and tool type things that could be in place, so that we don't have 159 counties all trying to figure out everything on their own. These tools wouldn't be required to be used, but they would be built-in turnkey solutions. We could go ahead and have everything templated out for a precinct program,
Okay.
and have all of the data coming out of the voter file already divided up into reports for folks. Because a lot of our folks are not super tech savvy, but they are willing to do the work. And so we can do a lot of the technical side of things at the state party for them. Another thing I'd really like us to do is a lot more training, be that in Zoom, be that in person. I'd love for there to be like regional quarterly retreats for the chairs of each part of the state so they can get together and compare notes, because I don't think everything needs to be top down. I think there's a lot of learning that can happen between the state parties and between our grassroots activists. And so one thing that I've proposed is next year, we're not scheduled to have a Republican Party convention. But since we don't have that going on, I'd like to do a conference, Georgia Republican Party conference, where we lay out goals for all of our parties, where we have training, very extensive training over a 2 or 3 day period. And we set everyone up for success in 2026, because there's a lot at stake in 2026, the governorship, all of the General Assembly seats, our federal senator seat. And we have to pull out all the stops. We're not going to have Trump on the ballot.
Right.
We don't have Trump Force 47. So we're going to have to build a Georgia Force 26.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be a rough 2026, I believe. So, all right.
Absolutely.
So tell everybody how they can reach you, how they can find you for more information.
Yeah, you can reach me on Facebook at Brad Barnes GA. That's the username. Or you can email me at mail, MAIL, at bradbarnes.us. And I look forward to hearing from y'all.
Okay. And I always give my guests the last word, so we'll end with this question. Tell the audience why that they should vote for you.
Right. So, I mean, if you want a bigger, bolder vision for what we can accomplish, if you want someone that's been in the trenches for the grassroots all over the state, you're going to want me. You know, I'm the only one that's really outlined a comprehensive vision and really have the tenacity to pull this off. And so I think I am the man for the job, and I would appreciate your support at the June convention.
Well, Brad, I thank you for coming on the show. It's glad that you reached out. And June the 7th, folks, that's the state convention. So you can meet Brad Barnes there in person on the 7th. So.
Yeah.
All right, guys, we got a couple more before June 7th, and I hope to see everybody out at convention. And we got a lot more coming as we roll this out in Small Town Underground. So you guys have a great day.
Thanks, guys.